Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have a great show. Let's get right to it. First, how did the meeting go between Bryan Kohberger and his new judge? I know I said this yesterday, but I'm going to say it again. Sean, did he do it? Combs' attorney needs to shut up. Eric Adams surrenders at the federal courthouse, a horrific case in South Carolina that was totally preventable. The appellate court seems a little skeptical of the case against former President Trump. This day in legal history and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
Hi, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment below. Hit that little bell for notifications, and check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Also, if you need to check somebody out, go to crimetalksearch.com. It is a background subscription service that you are going to say, wow, I wish I had this sooner. Because when you have that subscription, you can do as many background checks on anyone here in the United States that your little heart desires, all right? And you're going to get all kinds of information as to, criminal history. Do they have bankruptcies on their record? Do they have civil judgments against them? Are they on one of those public registries, if you know what I mean? Check people out, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let new people into your life until you check them out at crimetalksearch.com. All right, let's go ahead and get straight to the record today. First, before we do that, it is Friday, September 27th. Can you believe that it is almost over? September is almost over. Unbelievable. All right. Well, let's get to it. Let's open the record with Bryan Kohberger. How did that new meeting go? Well, I think the judge is already trying to flex his muscle in this particular case. Now, if you watched the hearing here yesterday, we brought it to you live here on Crime Talk. Bryan Kohberger, he was in court. He was handcuffed. Now, he was dressed in a suit, and, the judge says, I'm going to grant it this time, but we're going to see if we really need to do that in the future because, it's kind of like, why are we doing this for him when we don't have to do it for everybody else? So, like I said, Kohberger appeared in court, and obviously he is the suspect for the killing of 4 University of Idaho students, and he is now in Ada County because he got what he wanted, a change of venue. I'm not sure he thought he was going to get a new judge. I think he thought he was going to get a new courtroom, but he got a new judge as well. Anyway, now, as you may recall, the trial was originally supposed to take place sometime in June of 2025, but that may change. So now we're no longer in Latah County. We're some 300 miles away now in Boise, Idaho. Like I said, after the change of venue motion was in fact granted, and the Idaho Supreme Court said, guess what? You're going to Ada County, kind of like what everybody thought. Didn't see the new judge being assigned. Normally, when they do a change of venue, the judge follows with the case. They just change courtrooms. Anyway, in this particular case, new judge is Stephen Hippler. We did a kind of a examination of him a couple of weeks ago. Not much about him other than, he was a private practice, and he's been a judge for a long time, and he's kind of the chief judge there, which is also kind of why he probably got this case. Anyway, the judge raised concerns about the timeline of the trial, which is expected to last anywhere between 3 to 4 months, saying that it'll be challenging for jurors to do this over the summer months because everyone has life to live. They usually take a vacation, kids events, you name it. Frankly, there's not going to be any good time for this trial to take place, but they're going to have to be reasonable to accommodate and find jurors that are going to be able to sit for that length of time. So Judge Hippler said, hey, why don't we move the trial up into May or push it into September versus the June date? Now, the defense said September is great. The prosecutor basically said, hey, we'll be here anytime you tell us to. So at least the prosecutor's kind of getting that mentality of, Judge, you tell us where and when, we will be there to prosecute this case. Now, the defense said, hey, we got some problems with this May date because, Judge, we got these experts and we were working with an expert, and guess what? One of our experts passed away, so we had to get another expert. The judge inquired and says, well, what's the nature of the expert? Well, it was kind of revealed, and there was going to be an ex parte hearing between the defense counsel and the judge, and we didn't get any update on that. But basically, it was a mitigation expert. Remember, this is a death penalty case, so you have to do your mitigation expert work. You could see it on Bryan Kohberger's attorney's face when they said mitigation, that it wasn't obviously to the ultimate issue of guilt that they were working on. It's mitigation. I understand you have to prepare for a sentencing on a death penalty case, even if you think you're trying to win that, but you have to be realistic. And so I thought it was interesting and telling that they're working quite diligently on mitigation, which means they're preparing for the worst. That's what attorneys have to do, always thinking of the what if. Now, jumping back to the schedule, and prosecutor said, hey, we'll take May, but we'll do whatever you really want us to do, Judge. Now, the judge also kind of laid down some rules in the court. He says we're going to have some hearings in the future. But one of the rules was, he said, yeah, I'll grant the request of Mr. Kohberger to wear a suit and tie instead of his jailhouse garb this time, but we're going to have a hearing to see whether we need to have street clothes at every hearing. Obviously, everybody wants to avoid potential prejudice, but the fact that he's in custody, everybody knows that. The jury's going to know that when they read the charges, if they haven't already heard about this case. So I think it is really, it's all show, no go. Yes, you have a right to be in civilian attire at the trial, but not at all the pretrial hearings. And the judge is more concerned about safety issues. So there's going to be a meeting between all the parties without Mr. Kohberger there and the sheriff, apparently, so that they can discuss security measures as well. Like I said, he was in handcuffs, but he was in a suit. Now, the defense did cite this 1976 Supreme Court case saying that forcing a defendant to wear a jail uniform to court negatively impacts whether a jury would see them in a negative light. That's a trial, not pretrial. Anyway, needless to say, the family wants him in jailhouse garb, but the judge said, like I said, he wears clothing at this hearing, but we'll have a hearing to see how that goes in the future. But of significant note was that Mr. Kohberger wore handcuffs in this court proceeding, whereas before he had been completely unshackled. So one of the first comments that the judge did make when he took the bench was, hey, I'd like to tell you I'm happy to be here, but I didn't want to start the hearing with an untruth. So needless to say, this wasn't exactly on his radar, nor did he actually think he was probably going to get it. But he's going to do his duty. Now, the judge also laid down some ground rules for all of the attorneys there. He expects everybody to remain civil with each other, that they not engage in personal attacks or ad hominem attacks against one another, and there's going to be no theatrics in his courtroom. He also noted that when attorneys file motions or briefs, that you need to cite contrary authority. Now, you would think, well, yeah, of course, why wouldn't you do that? That's what they teach you in law school. You have an ethical obligation to say, Judge, here's the case that I'm really relying upon, but here's this other case that is not so good for my position, but I'm bringing it to the court's attention. It seems like that's less and less going away. People only cite what they want to cite, not all of the relevant case law out there. But the judge said, do that. So he's laying down the rules, letting everybody know he's in charge. Be respectful, be ethical in my courtroom, and we're all going to get along just fine. We're going to have to wait, obviously, for future hearings to see how the judge is going to rule on some of these matters, but I think he's going to get his way. It depends on what took place in that ex parte hearing as to the timing of the mitigation expert that the defense is working with, whether they move this trial up to May or back to September of 2025. I'm leaning to May of 2025. Next on the docket. I said this yesterday, and I'm going to say it again just because I think that the attorney for Sean P. Did He Do It Combs just needs to shut up. All right? Now, Costco, the big retailer club, right? Everybody's, not everybody, but a lot of people have Costco memberships. I've got a Costco membership. All right? Well, they issued a statement saying that none of the U.S. warehouses sold baby oil in bulk to Sean Combs, in furtherance of the hip-hop mogul's alleged freak-off sex parties that have become the centerpiece, obviously, of the federal criminal trial or case against Mr. Combs. Now, there was a report on Thursday that Costco had raised objections to its brand name being associated with Combs' alleged crimes, with the spokesperson telling the news and gossip sites that none of its members-only locations carry baby oil. This became kind of a big deal because TMZ confirmed this assertion by not finding baby oil among the products listed on any of the Costco websites. So over the past weeks, Combs' attorney, this Mark Agniflio, invoked Costco's name while trying to come up with a not so nefarious explanation for why his client would possess such a massive supply of baby oil. And he kind of quipped, he buys it in bulk from Costco? Are you serious? Like, seriously, that's maybe the comment that you make, in your office. Oh, he's a guy that he buys in bulk. Maybe something you say off the cuff with the prosecutors. But in today's day and age, for an attorney to go out there on a high-profile case and say something like that, guess what? All the internet sleuths are going to go check that out. And in this particular case, Costco shut him down. And it just makes him look silly. So all this came about, obviously, in the indictment of Sean Combs. Homeland Security, when they raided Sean Combs' residence, they found 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant when they raided his mansions in Los Angeles and Miami. Now, obviously, the prosecutors are alleging that Mr. Combs would lure and coerce women to engage in sexual performances with male sex workers for him to watch and record, sometimes without their knowledge. Like I said, during this interview with TMZ, Combs' attorneys tried to cast doubt on the U.S. attorney's accounting of the baby oil and said, I don't know where that 1,000 bottles, where they may have come from. Just why is that attorney out there making the rounds other than looking for his 15 minutes of fame? Don't do it, ladies and gentlemen. You don't do it. Maybe if you have something to say after the case is over, but not while the case is pending, are you going to comment on that? Next, Eric Adams. That's right. The mayor, Eric Adams, surrendered to the feds this morning ahead of his scheduled appearance before a Manhattan federal judge just a day after he was indicted with a historic indictment alleging a decade-long pattern of corruption. Yeah, he checked in early because he had to go get fingerprinted with the marshals, ladies and gentlemen. Now, he was going to have an arraignment discovery conference and anticipated that he was going to plead not guilty. But the mayor, being the true politician he was, gave the thumbs up, but didn't speak as he left his motorcade and entered the courthouse just before 9 a.m. this morning. Now, the 5-count indictment, unsealed Thursday, accuses the mayor of New York of a slew of improper gifts from Turkish officials and business people, including $123,000 in free hotel stays and free or deeply discounted flights. He is also accused to have obtained $10 million in public campaign funds that he got in exchange for favors to various individuals named in the indictment. Some of those favors included he allegedly got the fire officials there in New York to waive the inspection and push through approval for the Turkish consulate in Manhattan. That's according to the indictment. Now, his surrender came after his attorney, Alex Spiro, had asked the court to delay his arraignment until at least Monday to reduce the number of times the mayor would have to travel to the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Like I said, those charges include that in the indictment, conspiracy, wire fraud, and bribery, and a scheme to defraud the citizens of New York that goes back as early as 2013. Now, obviously, the mayor has said that he is innocent and that he's going to fight the charges completely. Now, Mayor Adams said that he has no plans to resign and is intending to fight all of the charges. He said, from here, my attorneys will take care of this case so that I can take care of the city. And he gave that statement outside the Gracie Mansion, which is the mayor's residence. Mayor Adams did state that he was being targeted by the feds because he said that the federal immigration system is completely broken. And he blamed the Biden administration for the destruction of the city. And the mayor's lawyer said, hey, it's not that unusual nor improper for government officials to accept some travel perks. Once again, Mr. Spiro insisted the travel perks and seat upgrades for the mayor were quite common, and that's quite commonly offered to VIPs and members of Congress. Oh, so everybody else does it, so should I. No, you have to disclose it. That's where his problem is, and we'll talk about this next week, is so many things that he got that probably wouldn't have been a big deal had he actually disclosed it. He didn't. Anyway, ultimately, Mayor Adams is facing up to 45 years in prison if he is convicted on all 5 counts. Next, a deadly crash in South Carolina that was completely preventable. So a South Carolina woman has claimed that she had a psychotic episode and lost touch with reality when she killed 3 teenagers in a horrific car crash. Melissa Ann Parker was sentenced to 25 years in prison earlier this week after she was found guilty of several felonies, which included DUI resulting in death. Now, Ms. Parker had been behind the wheel of a car when she plowed into twin sisters Elena and Isabella Lee Gaddis and Brianna Lynn Foster back in August of 2021. The 3 teens were just 10 minutes from their destination when the Hummer SUV that Miss Parker was driving in hit the teenagers on the interstate because she was driving the wrong way down the interstate. So at sentencing, it came out that Parker said she had this psychotic episode and had attempted to medicate herself with THC gummies when she lost touch with reality. Oh, did I mention that Miss Parker had also stolen the Hummer from a Circle K parking lot after police were called to the scene? She nearly hit a responding officer as well. Anyway, police said that she then drove the vehicle onto the interstate on the wrong way before she collided with the sedan and killed all 3 girls. Now, the defendant, Ms. Parker, then crawled out of her car and ran away. And by the time police managed to track her down to a nearby residential area, they said it was quite clear that she was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. It was later determined in the hospital that she revealed she had taken the gummies and Adderall before getting behind the wheel. Like I said, she was sentenced on these 3 counts. She also was sentenced to assault and battery, grand larceny, hit and run with minor personal injury. Her attorney did make a statement saying that on the night of this tragedy, Melissa had psychotic episodes and tried to self-medicate THC gummies. She lost touch with reality and believed she had to run for her life in the stolen vehicle. In her panic, she drove onto the interstate the wrong way. 3 young girls died as a result, but Melissa has accepted full responsibility for her actions. Preventable, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely preventable. Next, the New York appellate courts seemed skeptical of the Trump prosecution. That's right. On Thursday, the appellate court judges had some pretty tough questions for New York prosecutors as it related to Donald Trump and his request to have them throw out the $454 million civil fraud judgment against him. The justices wanted to know why the penalties were set at almost $500 million and who had been harmed in a case where neither side had lost any money. But Judge Arthur Engoron in February had ordered the former president to pay these $454.2 million in penalties and interest for inflating his net worth to dupe lenders and insured into giving better terms into deals. Anyway, Justice David Freeman pressed the state on whether there was any precedent for the attorney general suing over transactions involving pretty sophisticated parties, in this particular case, banks, where neither side lost any money. Every case that you can cite involves damages to consumers, damages to the marketplace, and we don't have any of that here. So they asked to explain why. And the Attorney General's office really didn't have a good answer. Like I said, as you may recall, Judge Engoron in February ordered the former president to pay that nearly $500 million in penalties because he determined that the former president's organization, his business, was trying to inflate his net worth to dupe lenders and insurers into giving him better rates. New York Attorney General Letitia James brought the civil case. Now, the Trump lawyer, a guy by the name of John Sauer, told the judge that the case was first brought too late, well beyond any statute of limitations, and that it would be unfair to impose a crippling financial penalty for the former president's decade-old financial statements, which the judge found were illegally inflated. This case involves a clear-cut violation of the statute of limitations, they argued, and all relevant case law. The president's attorney also said that the trial testimony showed that any discrepancies in Trump's net worth were irrelevant to the lender, so it didn't matter. And what is not disputed is the testimony that the net worth had been as low as $1 million. The deal would have been exactly the same terms because that's what the banks wanted to do. He added that none of the former president's lenders and business partners were harmed by the discrepancies on the financial statements at all, and therefore there should be no case. There's no victims, there's no case. We'll see how that rules. Somehow I think he's going to win. That's just an absurd amount of money. Everything was fishy about that one, and I don't care if you like the guy or not. This is a case where they made legal gymnastics and engaged in contortion to get there. Next, this day in legal history on September 27th, 1964, the report of the Warren Commission, chaired by Chief Justice Earl Warren, on the Kennedy assassination was released. And fortunately, that solved everything and answered all questions as it related to the incident related to Lee Harvey Oswald killing President Kennedy. And finally, our dumb criminal of the day. The Sacramento County Sheriff's Office said that just after 4 a.m. on Sunday, deputies received a burglary alarm from a Bank of America. When the deputies were able to respond, they quickly spotted an SUV leaving the area with its lights off. The deputies tried to pull the suspicious vehicle over, but said the suspects wouldn't yield. A short chase followed, with the suspects eventually hitting a curb that took out their SUV. Two people got out and ran from the SUV, but the deputies were able to arrest them. The pair were identified as Jose Racon and his brother Juan. The sheriff noted that that's the perfect criminal, right? They don't get the money and they get arrested immediately. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, our dumb criminal of the day. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you Monday, and remember that Constitution matters.